Hello everyone, and welcome to The Save Point. Save Point is a podcast that wants to bring Bible-based reviews on video games. We will be judging on two main criteria, the quality of the game and the content of the game. Both will be scored on a scale of 1 to 5. Today's game we are looking at is The Bridge. Just as a warning, this game is a bit darker than what I usually cover, so be warned. The Bridge is a story-oriented puzzle game where you can manipulate the environment to solve the puzzle. Puzzle games are one of the most varied game genres I have come across. You can have games like The Room, where you just unlock a box, or games like Escape Academy, where you work to escape a escape room. Pretty self-explanatory. Come to think about it, most puzzle games involve rooms. Anyway, the art style of The Bridge is very similar to an artist called M.C. Escher. He was a Dutch artist who lived from June 17, 1898 to March 27, 1972. All of the levels are heavily inspired by his art, so it is assumed you play as him throughout the game. You start the game underneath an apple tree, and an apple falls on your head. Does this remind you of anybody? Anyway, you start with the first 8 sections of the game. Each section has 7 levels. These levels can be quite challenging and frustrating. I won't be going through each and every level, so that's for you to discover on your own, but I will continue with the true core of this game. A man who is looking to create something, but loses his own mind in the process. Bit dark. The core gameplay is actually pretty simple. You try to reach a door. Pretty simple, right? Wrong. It will be revealed as to why it's harder, but to begin, most doors are locked and you need to find a key. In the first section, the professor is shown shaking hands with Isaac Newton. There it is. This symbolizes his embracing of Newtonian physics and using them to learn as much as he can. The levels and gameplay are fairly simple. Your only controls are to walk your character back and forth, rotate the entire world, gravity still applies, and interact with the door. The challenge comes in the main thing that will be annoying you for the rest of the game is introduced, called the Menace. Trust me, it is an absolute menace. It's a giant ball that rolls around, and if you touch it, you die. Fun times, right? The first level just acts as a tutorial. In the second stage, there is a vortex showing that he has started to branch off from Newtonian physics and truly experiment with what is possible. This is reflected in the gameplay as introducing vortexes that can hold things in place. The vortexes can be turned off with buttons. In the last level of Chapter 2, it's called the Mausoleum, and you can see a dead body covered with a sheet with the year Isaac Newton died in Roman numerals above it. As I said, gets a bit dark. In Chapter 3, you see a painting of the professor who is already starting to look a bit old, sitting alone with a Penrose triangle. A Penrose triangle is literally impossible to make in real life. In this chapter, it adds a sort of parallel reality where everything is inverted. This also makes the levels way harder, as you need to find alternate versions of the keys and make sure the door is the same as the inverted type, or if it's not inverted, you need to make sure your there is not inverted. It's just not that fun in my opinion. This was not really fun for me to play. In Chapter 4, the painting is of a really old professor holding a tesseract. Not the one holding the space stone, but a 4-dimensional object. The new gameplay feature is called the Veil. The Veil is confusing. It seems to transcend reality and allow you to manipulate the area without you moving. Kinda like a more useful vortex, but you can't fall into it, you have to walk on the ground into it, or else you just fall straight through. It's interesting. Weird. After Chapter 4, you cross a bridge, which is seen as the professor trying to regain his sanity, which he appears to lose over the course of this game. But as you're about to cross the bridge, it just explodes. Color briefly returns to the world, but it is soon sucked out and you start the next half of the game. I thought Chapter 3 was the last level of the game, and then I found out Chapter 4, and then I found out that wasn't even halfway through, and Yeah, this was not fun to make. Then there are these mirror chapters. These levels are similar to the previous chapters, but are still different and difficult. The painting for Mirrored Chapter 1 is eerily similar to the painting for Chapter 1, but the hands of both the Professor and Isaac Newton are just missing, and the sphere that hangs above them looks like a drop of blood. Pleasant. Chapter 2 is no better, with the painting being similar to Chapter 2, but Isaac Newton is missing his face. The scrolls the Professor are holding look like they were dipped in blood, and the vortex looks like it has a drop of blood within it. Yeah. Chapter 3 has the old Professor sitting again, but there's blood leaking from his eyes, and the entire surrounding area, including the Penrose Triangle, is upside down. This is not the worst one. In Mirrored Chapter 4, it has the Professor sitting in a dark, looking like his eyes were gouged out while he was holding his Tesseract. Anyway, it just looks like his work cost him everything. After you complete Mirrored Chapter 4, you try to cross the bridge again, and this time you see Newton and yourself, but once again the bridge collapses. This basically symbolizes he cannot escape the madness he created for himself, and this is how the game ends. Depressing. Extremely depressing. The bridge is an interesting game. Unlike most games that are heavy, it doesn't tackle a big challenge like grief. At the same time, it's not completely just utterly dark, while still being fun in a crazy yet goofy way. It's just a sad story. It doesn't contain humor, but it isn't real life. It falls somewhere in between. It's also a puzzle game primarily, so it's made to make you think. You can't miss the story on accident. Anyway, off from that, let's go on to the rating. For quality, this game was actually released in 2013, which I didn't even realize when I first started playing. It looks amazing. The simplistic art style is very fun, and the game just looks hand-drawn. I really like it. The game is a good length, which I didn't know until I was basically halfway through. So much fun. Anyway, for cons, there aren't really any cons for its quality. It's just annoying. For quality, I give it a 5 out of 5. For content, the puzzle is very interesting, and it keeps your brain very engaged. A lot of the story is broken around, so you have to keep track of it as you go along. Cons, the puzzles can be very, very hard. The story is also extremely dark. The images in some of the paintings are just downright upsetting. For content, I give it a 3 out of 5. That brings the overall rating to a 4 out of 5. As for my personal thoughts, the bridge was very interesting. I enjoyed the story, but I did not enjoy playing it. I don't really like puzzle games in the first place, and the bridge is so much harder than I was anticipating. It's a good, solid game. The story is unsettling, but if you like it, then go ahead. It's a good, solid game. Well, that about sums up this episode of The Save Point. I hope you all have enjoyed this episode and found its contents helpful. The Discord link is in the description. Thank you all for listening, and may the Lord bless you and give you peace.